Welcome back to another episode of my weekend previews on La Liga on my YouTube channel and the Lista de la Liga with me, Terry Gibson. Week 21, the weeks are rolling by. A good midweek period of action in the Champions League, Europa League for the teams in La Liga. Most of them successful. And we're going to look ahead to this weekend's action. And starting with Friday evening, Levante against Elche. I hope these weekend predictions and previews are of use to you. Hope you enjoy them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and the Lista de la Liga. Just trying to fill in the gaps where we used to be with La Liga TV when we had the programmes on Friday, the roundup programmes on Monday, and of course I do the podcast La Liga Weekly with John Driscoll on Mondays when I return from Madrid after working during the weekend on CoComs on the English speaking world feed, and that's what I'm on again this week. So travelling out to Madrid again for 3 games this weekend, so looking forward to that, and looking forward to getting stuck into it straight away. So Friday evening we start with Levante against Elche. Levante weren't embarrassed last week against Real Madrid. I think Luis Castro has made a good impression. I think all the 3 new managers that have recently been appointed have done well so far, and Luis Castro falls into that category for Levante. As I say, they weren't embarrassed by Real Madrid last week. They're finding points hard to come by. Of course they are. Newly promoted teams often do. And this is a good game from this week. It's one where I'm seeing sparks of life in Levante. I'm seeing sparks of life in Oviedo as well. So it's not a foregone conclusion that they get relegated. They're the 2 favourites at the moment because they are trailing a little bit. And they face Elche at home. And Elche, I think, are a good team. Again, these 2 teams faced each other last season in the Segunda division, but their fortunes have been rather different this season. Elche worked a lot harder in the transfer window. Last summer they had the ability to do that. They pretty much ripped up their team, started again, and it's paid off for them. But they're going through a tricky period at the moment. 2 points in their last 4 games. They were 2-0 up on Monday evening against Sevilla. Sevilla got 2 late goals to equalise, which was massive for Sevilla, and a massive disappointment for Elche because that would have taken them away from the relegation battle. I say relegation battle, they're 8th, but they are only 5 points above relegation. It's a crazy league this season. We have the top 4 fighting out for the title, probably the top 2 if I'm being honest, but that depends on a big game this weekend that's coming up that I'll preview shortly. Then you've got 3 teams fighting for the other European spots. Espanyol, 34 points, been caught by Betis almost, and Celta are both on 32. And then there's a gap of 8 points to Elche. And then from Elche in 8th down to Alaves in 19th, in the bottom 3, is 5 points. So fascinating second half of the season coming up. And as we see from Girona, who've won 3 on the trot. Suddenly they've rocketed and flown up the league, and everything looks healthy. But themselves, they're only 5 points above relegation. That's on the back of 3 straight wins. So this is a tricky game for Elche. Away from home, they'd be hugely disappointed they didn't get the 3 points against Sevilla. That would have just calmed the nerves a little bit, but they conceded 2 late goals. And Levante at home, I'm going to go for a Levante win in this one. As I say, they didn't embarrass themselves last week at the Bernabeu. In fact, in the first half, they were pretty good. It wasn't until they conceded the penalty, then Asensio gets the second, and then from then on it was quite comfortable for Real Madrid. But it certainly wasn't a poor performance from Levante, so I'm going for them to get the win in this one on the Friday night match. So that starts off proceedings. On Saturday we then go to the first game of the day, is Rayo Vallecano against Osasuna. Osasuna this week incidentally have signed Raul Moro, the former Valladolid player. He went off to Ajax for decent money. Hasn't really worked out, of course, and Ajax seems to be a difficult club to settle in at the moment. Different changes of managers and poor form domestically, but they did get a win against Villarreal midweek in the Champions League, so that was a big surprise. But Raul Moro has joined Osasuna. I look forward to seeing him playing for Osasuna. I think he was really good at Valladolid. I understand there were Premier League clubs interested in him as well. And it'd be good to see him back in La Liga. Victor Munoz on one side, Raul Moro on the other, Budimir playing up front, Aymar Aroz just playing off of him. It looks a good prospect for Osasuna, so I think that's a really good signing. So they face away from home against Rayo. Now Osasuna have only got 2 points away from home this season, so that's a problem. They won last week against Oviedo 3-2 and made hard work of it, but Oviedo, as I said, sparks of life from Oviedo to scoring goals. But Rayo, it's they don't score goals. It's just 16 goals this season. In this is week 21. So that's a real surprise, to be honest, because Inigo Perez has them well set up, well organised. They're effervescent in their attacking play, but they're just not scoring goals. Now they're on 22 points, so they're 3 points above the drop zone. They do have Real Madrid away next week as well. So when you have that in the back of your mind, you think we desperately need some points this weekend. We're playing a team at home who are not good away in Osasuna. But it's a tough one to call. I haven't seen enough from Rayo to convincingly predict a home victory. So I'm going to go for Osasuna to get their 3rd point of the season away from home with a draw in this one. Be a low scoring affair, but I'm going for a low scoring draw. Then we have Sevilla against Athletic Club on Saturday after the Valencia. Then we go to Valencia Espanyol. I should know that was that next game because I'm co-commentating on that one. Valencia got massive issues at centre back. Diacabi is injured and out for some time again, having only just returned from injury. Cesar Tarraga is out injured as well. Pepelu filled in at centre back last week during the game. He has played in goal this week. He's played as the number 10. He's played as midfield. They're talking about Pepelu instead of Comet playing at centre back. Carlos Corberán doesn't really fancy him, so Pepelu might be forced into playing at centre back. So that's an issue for Valencia. I'm not sure they can bring anyone in the transfer window. We'll wait and see. They face Espanyol. Have only got 1 point in the last 3. So Valencia got a really good win last week away from home against Getafe, and that would have boosted their morale. They haven't been too good on their travels this season. They've been okay at home. That's where they're stronger. Espanyol, they need to hold their nerve. I mean, they're being nearly caught by Betis and Celta. They've got 1 point in their last 3 games, and they've been the surprise package of the season. Manolo Gonzalez and his team deserve all the plaudits. They just need to hold their nerve now. Don't panic. Don't start looking over their shoulder. It's easy for me to say that, and it's not easy when you're in that position. But if they can hold their nerve, they should be able to get something from Valencia. So it's Javi Puado being injured and going to miss the rest of the season is a massive blow for them. It's coincided with their poor form, and it's a little bit of an issue for them at the moment. But as I say, if they can avoid panicking, losing at home to Girona wasn't ideal. It was a surprise result in the Catalan derby, considering the fortunes of both those teams this season. So I'm going to go for a draw in this one. I'm going to go for Espanyol to be resolute, determined, well organised defensively. Roberto Fernandez will give them a threat in attack. Hugo Duro will be the main man for Valencia. But I think the fact that Valencia had problems at centre-back might play into the hands of Espanyol, at least scoring once. So I'm going to go for another low-scoring draw in this one. Then we come to Sevilla against Athletic Club. Now, Athletic would have win in midweek for Athletic Club. It was all or nothing. It's their hopes of getting into the Champions League playoffs rested on getting a win at Atalanta, and they did exactly that with a 3-2 victory with players missing. They're going to have players missing this week again as well. There's suspensions, there's injuries. Nico Williams didn't play in the midweek Champions League match. Will he be back for this one? Berenguer might be back for this one as well. Sevilla will be boosted by the fact they got those 2 late goals away from home against Elche. Give them a little bit of confidence. They've not been great, they're far from it. 21 points, they're 2 points above relegation. So that point they stole at the end of the game against Elche was a massive relief for them. They talk about my concern with Sevilla is they're going to lose players again during this transfer window. Quique Salas has been linked with a move to CSKA Moscow. They haven't been able to agree a fee. Sevilla don't particularly want to sell him, and if they do, they want every euro they can get for him. So that's my concern with Sevilla. In this one, it's Athletic Club, a couple of goals last week in the defeat of Mallorca. Scored 3 against Atalanta, suddenly firing their goal scoring, solving their goal scoring problems. I think they'll score in this one. I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 away victory for Athletic Club. I think that huge win against Atalanta in midweek will give them confidence. They were furious after their scoreline and result last week away from home against Mallorca. Felt really aggrieved. Their players sent off. Uno Gomez got sent off on the bench after being substituted, so he'll be missing. As I say, 1 or 2 players suspended, 1 or 2 players injured, but I'm still going to go for an Athletic victory in this one. I think the pressure of Sevilla playing at home is too intense at the moment. They're not particularly good away. So it's problems all round for Sevilla. So I'm going to go for the Athletic victory in that one. Then we come to the late game Saturday evening, and it's a big one. Villarreal against Real Madrid. It's not a must-win game for Villarreal against Real Madrid, but it is. It's they lost to Betis last week. You know, Real Madrid got the win. It's Barcelona lost last week. But it's essential for Villarreal to. They've lost to Atleti, they've lost to Real Madrid, they've lost to Barcelona. At some stage, they're going to have to start taking points off them. The teams above them, and I think this is one where I think they have to win. Now, they lost to Betis last week. They have had players missing. Pap Gay returns from African Cup of Nations duty. Congratulations to him, winning team for Senegal, and what a goal to win it for him. He makes a big difference to Villarreal. So I think that Marcelino will be delighted to have him back. The Betis defeat, they didn't play well, but Betis really did play well. Betis pressed them high. Will Real Madrid do the same? No. So I think that might kind of play into the hands of Villarreal against for Real Madrid. So I think it's really important that they do close high, because Betis did it last week, and they made the point of telling us after the game that was their game plan. It shook up Villarreal. Villarreal weren't able to play their usual fluent football. I have issues this year with Villarreal. They look fantastic in La Liga, and they've been knocked out of Copa del Rey early, and they got 1 point from the Champions League. So it's been foregone conclusion that they're not going to make the playoffs. And their form in that has really deteriorated to the fact they're losing to teams you're thinking Villarreal shouldn't lose to them. You know, the good representatives of La Liga, they're probably going to be in the competition again next season. So, in fact, it's about time that Villarreal did something. Instead of just beating the teams around them and below them and being consistent, it needs a statement victory from Villarreal. Do I think they'll get it in this game? Again, I'm predicting a lot of draws this week, and I'm leaning towards a draw in this one. There will be goals. I'm going to go for 2-2. I think Villarreal can get something. I don't think they get the win they crave for. And I think Real Madrid look to be in good form, turning their form around under Arbeloa. Fantastic win against Monaco midweek, 6-1 victory. Vinicius back in form, and Mbappe scoring again. Arbeloa seems to have got them up and running again after the ridiculous defeat in the Copa del Rey. A poor first half performance against Levante last week. So I'm not convinced, but the performance against a poor Monaco team was marvellous. So I think they go into this with confidence. And also the fact that Barcelona lost, so the gap is now just 1 point at the top between Real Madrid and Barcelona. I don't expect Real Madrid to get beat, so I'm going to go for a 2-2 in this one. Then we go on to Sunday to Atletico against Mallorca is the early game. Atleti, decent draw away from home against Galatasaray in the Champions League. They've got a chance of finishing in the top 8. They are trailing. This is a must-win game for Atleti against Mallorca. They have to win. There's no doubt about that. Atleti have scored once in each game of their last 5 matches. And suddenly when you're watching Atleti, they don't look particularly solid defensively. But back in the day when they were winning 1-0, we kind of accepted that they're not free scoring. They're not prolific, but they're well organised defensively. They keep clean sheet after clean sheet. But they're not keeping clean sheets. And they're not prolific in front of goal. And the big concern has to be Julian Alvarez. He hasn't scored in his last 9 in La Liga. He's got 1 in the last 13. Griezmann has been in good form, better form, coming off the bench. Now, whether it's because he's coming off the bench, I don't know. But Julian Alvarez, and there's a lot of speculation this week linking him to clubs around Europe for massive sums of money, because, of course, Atleti paid a massive sum of money for him. But this is he's in a rut at the moment, and Atleti are in a rut at the moment. So Mallorca should be ideal opponents. Now that Mallorca got the win last week, 3-2 against Athletic Club. You've got to stop Marici, that's it, end of. I mean, he scored the hat-trick, he scored all 3 last week. He does score the majority of their goals. He's certainly got over half of the goals Mallorca has scored this season. So I'm going to go for an Atleti win. And yeah, it might well be 1-0 again. So I'm going to go for a narrow victory for Atletico Madrid. I'm going to go for them to keep a clean sheet. And I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory for Atletico. But again, it's a must-win game. They'll be looking and hoping that Real Madrid drop points at Villarreal. Or they'll be hoping it's a draw for Atleti. They'll be hoping they win, and they'll be hoping Barcelona get beat, of course. Don't see that happening. because we're going to go across to Sunday's matches now, and it's an interest. After the Atleti Mallorca game, Barcelona play Oviedo, so it's top versus bottom. Hard to explain how Barcelona got beat last week against Real Sociedad. Hit the woodwork, I think, 5 times. Had 3 goals disallowed, a penalty overturned. It was Alex Ramiro in goal. Had one of the games of his life, and yet Real Sociedad won 2-1. So it was a fantastic game. I was fortunate to be on co-coms. There was so much happening, so much happened that didn't matter, didn't count. There was offside goals here. Even Real Sociedad had an offside goal disallowed in the opening minutes of the game. Then as soon as Barcelona equalised, Real Sociedad fired back and get the winner. It was a fabulous game of football. And in fairness to Barcelona, most of the games they play in are. Now, Pedri is missing for, I think it's about a month. The fixture list is kind in the fact that the games he's going to miss, they should be comfortable. They've got cover. There's no one to replace Pedri, of course, but the games that they've got, as I say, the fixture list is kind, and this is one of them, at home to Oviedo. Oviedo under Guillermo Almada, there's a spark of life. They're scoring goals. They were unlucky to lose last week, 3-2 at Osasuna. Really unlucky. Fede Vinas is playing centre forward this now, where I think he should have been playing all season, to be honest. I think he's a more than decent centre forward. Now, did I get something from this game? No, I can't see it. I can see Barcelona running out comfortable winners. But let's not forget that period last season when I've just mentioned some comfortable fixtures for Barcelona coming up. They did drop points in that run. I think it was November last year in that to teams they shouldn't have done. Will they do in this game? I don't think they will. It was a decent performance against Slavia Prague. They made hard work of it with their weakness at defending set pieces in that particular game. Do I think they have the consistency that we saw last season defensively? Not a chance. I mean, last season we knew what the team was going to be. The back four, and it was Koundé, it was Kubasi, Inigo Martinez and Balde. Very rarely changed. This season, Hansi Flick hasn't got the luxury of having a first choice centre-back pairing. So it's in the week, it was Eric Garcia was playing centre-back again, Gerard Martin was there, it was Pau Kubasi was rested, Araujo comes off the bench. I don't know at the moment, if I'm being perfectly honest, whether the best, or Hansi Flick seems to think is the best. He's toyed with Gerard Martin, the left back, who's a left-footed player playing now. But just in the last 3 or 4 games, I'm looking and thinking that maybe he's losing faith with that choice. If I'm guessing, I would say he would go Eric Garcia, Pau Kubasi, but there's no left footer there. So I think that's the big difference between Barcelona this season and last season. Whereas last season the consistency was there defensively, the understanding was there with the offside trap, the high defensive line, and I think it would help Hansi Flick if he can get some consistency going with regarding the first choice selection of the centre back pairing. But whoever plays will be enough for Barcelona to overcome Oviedo. But then have Real Sociedad against Celta Vigo. This is a really good game to look forward to, this one. Both teams are certainly Celta in really good form. Real Sociedad under the new manager Materazzi of unbeaten in 5 in all comps. Climbed up the table suddenly, 24 points, 8th position. But again, let's reiterate, 5 points above relegation. I don't expect Villarreal to be in a relegation battle. With the players that they've got, it was criminal that they were struggling down that part of the division. They shouldn't be doing so. And now we're seeing a really good performance against Barcelona. They're good to watch. The atmosphere in the stadium is vibrant. And I expect it to be in this game. Who's going to win this one? Do you know what? I'm going to go with a home victory purely on the fact that Celta had a Europa League match in midweek. They played an hour with 10 men. They were able to win against Lille 2-1. So that was a fantastic victory for them. Gives them a chance of making the top 8 in that competition with 1 game to go. So they're in wonderful form. 4 straight wins in all competitions, which is brilliant for them. If only then they've drawn all those matches at the start of the season, then we'd be looking at them. I mean, they're 2 points behind Espanyol now. They're level on points with Betis. So they're going to the game with both teams going to this game with confidence. I'm going to go for a narrow victory for Real Sociedad at home. I'm going to go for the home win. We've got Alaves against Betis. Alaves are struggling at the moment, but they are good at home. 15 points at home and only 4 away. Betis are inconsistent. I'm getting sort of a vibe that they're better at home than they are away. Drew against Alaves last time out. Were fabulous last time out at home against Villarreal. They won 4-0 against Getafe, the home game before that. But they're not the same team away from home. As I say, Alaves has got 1 point in the last 4, but they are strong at home. Now again, they've slipped down. I mean, they're in the bottom 3, so that's an issue. Eduardo Caldet is like Espanyol. When you're in this poor run of form, try and hold your nerve. Alaves are one of those teams in trouble. I can see them getting something. I'm going to go for a draw in this one. I'm going to go for a 1-1 in the Alaves Betis match. Monday night we have Girona against Getafe. New signing for Girona this week, Marc-Andre ter Stegen has made the short journey to sign on loan for Girona. Everybody involved with Barcelona and ter Stegen said it's not a final goodbye from Barcelona, but it's hard to see him ever regain his position as number 1 at Barcelona again because of the excellent form of Jean Garcia. It's important that ter Stegen plays because of the World Cup. He will get the opportunity, so it's unfortunate for Paulo Gazzaniga, who served them well over the last 3 or 4 years, but his form has been erratic this season. And listen, ter Stegen's not going to Girona to battle for a place. That would have been sealed when he signed for Girona on loan. He was going to be number 1. I look forward to seeing him play. It's interesting how his Barcelona career has turned out. He's an absolute legend for the club, won numerous trophies, but it all went sour towards the end. Now, is this the end for Barcelona and him? Yes, I think it is, but I don't think he'll be permanently going to Girona. But it suits him well. He hasn't got to move. He can just make the journey to Girona on a daily basis, be the number 1 goalkeeper, play for a team now who was getting their confidence back. Similar to Real Sociedad, where the players they've got, they should never have been in the form that we saw in the first half of the season. He will improve them, that's for sure. As I say, they're on 25 points now with 3 straight wins. Look how quickly you can move up the table or down the table because things are so close from 8th down. So Girona, 3 straight wins, they still only find themselves 5 points above relegation. But they'll be helped by the fact that ter Stegen has signed. Now, Getafe in freefall. 1 point in the last 6 games. Got knocked out of the cup by lower division, second division Burgos. I look at Getafe now and I don't see a squad that Bordalas would have picked. And that's my issue. Defensively, they're fine. In midfield, Mir and Arambari, fine. The traditional Getafe, well organised at the back, aggressive, hard-working in midfield. Arambari's a really good player. And he's had injury issues. Otherwise, I don't think he would still have been at Getafe. But it's up front. I see young players. Don't see any consistency in selection because no one's really showing up and saying that I should be playing every week. I'm the man that's going to score the goals. Borja Mayoral has disappeared. One is coming off the bench or he's starting the games and coming off and being substituted. I see various youngsters being tried up front. I look at that squad now for Getafe and I'm worried unless they make some signings in the transfer window. I'm worried it lacks strength, power and experience in the attacking positions and they don't score goals. So for the first time in a good few years now, in Bordalas' second spell, I fear for Getafe. So, as I say, 1 point in the last 6 games, going out to Burgos in the Copa del Rey. All the signs point to a Girona victory. Getafe lost a big one last week against Valencia at home, which was a relegation battle. Even at this stage, early stage of the year, it was a relegation issue. And they conceded the late goal from Jose Gaya. So, yeah, they're very dispirited at Getafe, away from home at Girona, who are flying. I'm going to go for the home victory for Girona. That wraps up, that's on Monday evening, that game. That wraps up the weekend's action. As I say, I hope you enjoy these episodes, the previews of the weekend action. Catch me on the weekends on the English World Speaking feed doing commentaries. I've got some good games to look forward to. So join me, enjoy the weekend's actions, and I'll get to you as soon as I can next week.